my mind is absolutely buzzing with things that I need to yap about. And of course, I started the day today by seeing this, which I'm sure you all have seen, which is Sabrina Carpenter kissing Jenna Ortega, making out, swapping spit with Jenna Ortega in her latest music video in her album that just came out today. And I just have a lot to say about a lot of things, about respectability politics, about assimilationist queers, about propaganda, and about how some of y'all, queer or otherwise, can't let go of this fucked up queer baiting narrative, and we need to talk about that. I also have some other thoughts about larger social movements a la mass coming out style, so I'll try to get through as much as I can in this video, but there might have to be a follow-up. Right off the bat, I feel like I need to say this, because this should not be a controversial statement. If a girl kisses another girl, that is gay behavior. That is sapphic behavior. That is not straight behavior. If you are a straight person who just loves kissing your girlfriends when you're drunk, I would just, first of all, reflect on that more deeply, and second of all, consider that you are not everyone. And no one should get upset by someone assuming they're queer if they are seen kissing someone of the same gender in their own music video that they directed, in their art that they put out to the world for millions of people to see. She knew this would be the most viral image of the day that she dropped her new album. And we keep running into this problem that I think is connected to a lot of other problems, because the discourse that we're seeing now is 100% connected to the rise of fascism that is occurring globally. I'm just gonna read off my own tweet because said it succinctly there, but as the far right continues to gain traction across the globe, the denial of queer representation is explicit erasure and homophobia. Extremely related and relevant to that talking point is the fact that Netflix just announced that they're making a modern retelling of Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, but instead of making Dorian and his lovers, they're making them siblings. That is honestly really violent queer erasure, considering that Oscar Wilde was imprisoned and later died, at least partially due to the incriminating evidence that they found in this exact book. This book was used to jail him. We are in this epidemic now of don't say gay, which essentially is just respectability politics and queer assimilationism, because queer people can sense the rise of authoritarianism and homophobia again, and I think a lot of it is just self-preservation. But y'all need to stop. No amount of assimilating is going to make them not come for you next. If you see gay, say gay. It's really that simple. None of this will be normalized without mass participation and destigmatizing these conversations about identity. And you all, every single one of you, contributes to that with your rhetoric, and what you say online matters. And a huge part of that is everyone who is policing queer people for talking about really blatant queer representation, just because that representation doesn't come with an explicit disclaimer, which continues to other queerness. This also bleeds heavily into the conversation about whether artists are queer baiting when they do sapphic things, including Taylor Swift, because a lot of people already talk about how, all of the queer flagging in her art and her music and, the aesthetics of her albums and whatnot is queer baiting. And I've even talked about that on here before, about the fine line between real people can't queerbait and the fact that brands can queerbait. But I think that this is a really tricky and nuanced discussion that we should be really careful about. And I think I have a responsibility to talk about this, especially because I've talked about it before and I've had varying opinions on it. And I feel really strongly now that our first jump should not be to accuse pop stars of queerbaiting when they do something queer, ever. And it's extremely harmful for a lot of different reasons. First of all, those of you who say it because you don't want them to be queer, you need to sit with the fact that you would rather believe your favorite artist is queer baiting, which is morally wrong, than actually queer. And ask yourself why. And realize that that is rooted in homophobia, whether it's implicit or explicit. Now, for those of you who are cynics and who heavily criticize billionaires and, powerful celebrities who seem to do nothing to help the general public and don't have our interests in mind, I hear you and I absolutely understand where you're coming from. You're not wrong about that. But I think it's extremely important now, when fascism is rising so quickly and when fascism depends on pushing wedges between people and encouraging more and more binary thinking, it's more essential than ever to try to hold multiple truths at once. And if you started following me like around fall to winter 2023 to 2024, you probably have wondered why I'm talking about Taylor Swift differently on this page now, because I was really mad at her for a while, and like I still am mad about a lot of things. But it was when her album came out and I actually sat with it, and like the full artistic scope of it washed over me and continues to consume so much of my brain. I realized that I think she has some really important commentary on how artists themselves are dehumanized by a system that depends on their dehumanization and depends on the public treating them as products and commodifying them. And that inherent narrative and framework that we're seeing things through is intentional and not always within the control of the artists themselves. I think everybody has a responsibility as consumers, even if you don't think you're actively consuming the things that these artists are creating, you are still participating in the culture of consumption by only talking about these people as brands and commodities, when the reality is they are people too. I'm not trying to humanize celebrities. Remember, I said it's important to hold multiple truths at once, but only holding one of those truths and then leaning into that is contributing to perpetuating the problem and the cycle, because these people are humans who are being dehumanized by a machine that needs us to dehumanize them and everyone else around us and eventually ourselves. So if we contribute to and play right into that dehumanization, we're ignoring the machine by focusing on the individual and perpetuating the cycle of fascism. When I was in my angry era, people commented on my videos that I was worsening the problem of talking about things like climate change or overconsumption solely through the lens of Taylor Swift. And at the time, I was annoyed by them commenting that. But now, I agree with them. I'm not even saying it's harmful to dehumanize celebrities because they deserve to be humanized. Although that's true, my main concern and focus is the trickle-down effect of that rhetoric on everyday people. And the trickle-down effect right now is it's contributing to a culture of don't say gay. When you say that all of these female celebrities are only queer baiting. And you need to pay attention to how you're saying that at the same time as this huge wave and rise of queerphobia, transphobia, homophobia, and you don't think those two things are connected? They absolutely are connected. And you think you're fighting the fascism, but you're actually just playing right into it. Just let celebrities be queer. Just let people talk about them being queer. What's the worst that's gonna happen? Is it so bad?